Greetings, Gamecock fans. Happy New Year. JC Shurburtt here with you, Chief Sports South Carolina, thebigspur.com, Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Recording this on New Year's Eve. Oh, gosh. Probably about, 7 hours before kickoff. Uh, but only 1 hour before Inside the Gamecocks, the tailgate show with myself and Mad Dog Mullinax and special guest, the final one of the year. If you're just seeing this, go check that out because I'm sure it'll be archived for your enjoyment later today. Did want to talk a little bit about an announcement coming up. Recruiting never stops. As we all know, the portal's kind of hit a lull, although the Gamecocks do have a center coming in from Texas San Antonio. It's been reported on Saturday. So that's about to kick back up pretty quick following the Citrus Bowl. But it's kind of slow with news right now, but there is a big high school decision coming up on January 2nd at the Under Armour All-America Game in DeLand, Florida. Of course, that game's in Central Florida, Orlando area, the practices and all that. It's ESPN deal by Donovan Murph, the wide receiver from Irmo. Murph, of course, is one of two stud receivers in the Columbia area, originally for the class of 2026 that reclassified to 2025. The other, of course, is Jordan Gidron, who's already in at South Carolina and practicing. He's from Ridgeview, 6'3", 190 guy. Certainly, he was a big get, and then Murph is the other one. And so this is the final cherry on top of the sundae of what is a good receiver class for the 2025 cycle for the Gamecocks, and getting those two kids to reclassify and come to the University of South Carolina early, if indeed the Gamecocks do get Donovan Murph, is huge. I'll be honest, when it came to my attention about a year and a half ago that there were two stud receivers in Columbia for this cycle, I got a little nervous. You always do, because these guys that are local, in Columbia especially, some kids just want to go away from home. Some kids just don't want to go to school in their hometown. It's not a given. We've seen it through the years where Columbia guys opt to go different places. Hasn't happened as often recently, but it does happen. I think, Channing Tindall, that went to Georgia, played on a national championship team, got drafted out of Spring Valley, was one. But the Gamecocks have done a better job. It used to be, it was 50% or less if Carolina would get a Columbia kid. They'd go to Clemson, they go out of state mostly, but now the Gamecocks have done a good job keeping guys at home in Columbia to play for the Gamecocks, and these were big. And you sort of look and you see, man, they need receivers, but even though you don't really know what's going to happen by the time this 2026 class rolls around, I can't even believe it's 2026. So you get a little nervous, just because when a recruit leaves or something like that, my job is more difficult. I have to explain why. People don't understand it, blah, blah, blah. But, getting him in early is huge. So let's talk about Donovan Murph and his decision. There's an article on 24/7 Sports, thebigspur.com, from Anna, and she mentions the three finalists are Clemson, South Carolina, and Colorado. Lots of rumors flying out there about different schools. If you look at, kind of read the tea leaves, South Carolina still got all the crystal ball picks. There was a report from rivals.com that says Colorado's sort of closed the gap. Deion Sanders, I guess, told Donovan Murph he didn't come to South Carolina to recruit somebody for nothing. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, Deion, did you not realize there's a lot of NFL talent that comes out of South Carolina? You probably should, come recruit South Carolina a little more. Anywho, and that's a report, that's out there. And then, he's visited there unofficially, I think twice. So they're in it. The Buffs are in it. Deion's in it, Coach Prime. And then Clemson, they've had him in for a visit. He went on the record and said that they kind of were in the lead. He went to the Clemson, South Carolina game. Some of their media outlets are no longer tracking him for some reason. I've talked to some Clemson folks that think, well, hey, you reasonably and realistically could go to Clemson. These days, not a lot of things are binding. So, and I cannot confirm that he is signed and is just keeping it quiet. I probably would not, you know, but not a lot is binding. I mean, if there is something binding, all you got to do is get in the portal when it opens again. Um, so who knows? Can't get in the portal now though, because it's closed for everybody but bowl teams and playoff teams until the spring. So I don't know. I can't confirm that, but the tea leaves do point towards a Gamecock commitment, and I'll just leave it at that. If it doesn't happen, it's a surprise. But we've all been surprised before. I mean, Carolina ended up with Malik Clark, but there's not a soul in Rock Hill or Columbia that thought Florida State was going to get him. Even Florida State was surprised. And South Carolina ended up flipping him because a disaster happened in Tallahassee, mainly, and also because Mike Fury and the Gamecocks just kept on keeping on. It was known at the time they were going to keep recruiting him, and they did. They ultimately flipped him, and Malik Clark's going to be a good player. I say all that to say nothing surprises me anymore. But we'll talk about Donovan Murph and what he brings to the table. This guy, when you talk to contacts within the program, they all say the same thing about him. He's a day one contributor, most likely. And it's because of his advanced ability physically. He's already 6'1.5", 6'2", 190 pounds. He can run, he can catch, he's an explosive athlete, big bodied guy, not 6'4", 6'5", but a big bodied guy, can go up and get it. Like I said, fast enough, really good hands. He's the type of player, higher floor than most. And at receiver, if you have a high floor, even though you're young, and we heard all about Ryan Williams coming in early, right? Even though you're young, you can go in and play at that position. Coaches always say the further you are from the ball, the easier it is to play. And wide receiver certainly is far from the ball. So, that would be a big pickup. When you're looking at this receiver class from high school, you sort of go through it. And, Malik Clark is a guy athletically who came a long way his senior year. He could step in, and all the guys besides Murph are practicing right now. They went through bowl practice. I don't think they traveled, but they went to on-campus bowl practices. They're going to be here for winter, going to be here for spring. And that's good because South Carolina needs some competition there, and it is an influx of talent. If you look at the rankings, it's the highest ranked receiver class on paper since the 07 class. Now, look back at the 07 class, a lot of those guys were highly ranked, didn't pan out, or like Chris Culliver, I'll never hear the end of that. I was working at Rivals.com at the time, and my boss, I was young, it was class of 07. It was like my second class I'd evaluated, and my boss overrode me and said, Culliver's a receiver. And he did look good at receiver in an all-star game, but and he came to Carolina as a receiver, but ultimately he is an NFL safety and corner. So that was, I was wrong about that. My name was on it, so I'll take it. But I still look back. That same class, I think one of the regional guys overrode me on Rob Gronkowski, who I had in the top 60. So there's one I was right about that I didn't get either. That's the way that business goes sometimes. And just to be honest, to be fair, and not tooting my own horn, there are rankings moves I wanted to make that I am glad I'll wake up in a cold sweat at night, glad I didn't make them, because that's that would have been a disaster. So, nevertheless, I'm not in that business anymore. I'll give you an eval, but ranking them, I just it gives me a headache just thinking about rankings meetings and. Just you guys don't understand the process. It's easier now with all the film and stuff, but it's very difficult because you're comparing guys from all over the country at different positions, ranking them in order. You have team site publishers who push guys and for their guys and stuff, and they're on the ground, so you have to listen to them. And you don't want to really override the local guy that's seen a guy play 6 times, do you? Especially if they know talent. So it's a mess. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into that. This is a Gamecock focused, receiver focused, recruiting focused video here. And so, it's one of those things where you look back at that 07 class for Carolina And a lot of those guys didn't really pan out. Matt Clements, Joe Hills, who ended up playing arena football, always had talent, just couldn't. It's hard to learn Spurrier's system for a lot of guys. Mark Barnes was in that class as a 4-star receiver, didn't really do much. Jason Barnes, who is now a coach and a good one, was probably the best in that class after Dion LaCorn had his good freshman and sophomore year, and they got hurt and kind of never got back to where he was. So there were some good moments from those players in that class, but it really did not live up to the hype. So this is the best one as far as number of blue chip guys at that spot that the Gamecocks have had. Don't get me wrong, Carolina's brought in some really, really good receivers through the years. But like with Shi Smith, Brian Edwards, Debo Samuel, they were kind of like doorsteps. Debo came in 14, Edwards in 16, Shi in 17. They were all on the field at the same time, and that was a good receiving core. And then, of course, there's transfer portal guys and things like that, and homegrown talent, and Xavier Legette that just got better and better and better. But you look at this group, and it's promising. It really is. Mike Fear's done a great job in state. If you talk to anybody in recruiting, there's two positions in state that you always want to take: D-line, and that's end and tackle, and then receiver. South Carolina receivers really, if I look state to state, I'm kind of looking at Georgia a lot of the time as having a higher bust rate at this position than South Carolina, and maybe North Carolina as well. I don't know why that is, but of course Florida is good at receivers and all of that good stuff. So I love it when they take South Carolina receivers. Even up at Clemson, you've seen during their glory year some really good in-state receivers. Tyler Brown last year, they redshirted him this season. Antonio Williams is coming into his own. Adam Randall moved to running back. He's an in-state guy. Mike Williams. All of us will always remember Hunter Renfro for good or bad. So Clemson said Nuke Hopkins is from South Carolina, Martavis Bryant. I mean, this state has put it out at that position. And so it's always good to take, and it doesn't matter where they're rated either. They could be rated anything. Bruce Ellington was a basketball recruit, pretty good player, right? And so always take in-state receivers. And the good thing about it is there are several in-state guys in this class. I mentioned Jordan Goodwin from Ridgeview, Malik Clark, who I mentioned from Rock Hill. You got Jaden Pup Sellers from South Florence. That's Lenoris's brother. If you get Donovan Murph, that's 4. And then the other guys in this class are really good as well. Lex Cyrus, South Carolina, went to Harrisburg, PA to get very fast player, 10.400 meter. Slot guy, will have to put on weight. He's already in and practicing as well. And then a guy I've heard a ton about, and I put this on thebigspur.com, is Brian Rowe, who was an early commit from the state of North Carolina, from Concord. Really does a lot of freaky things going up and getting the ball. Was told, get a quarter off the backboard kind of guy. I mentioned Shi Smith earlier. That's one of the reasons I love Shi Smith coming out of high school, because he was like Rowe, a smaller slot type guy, but fast, but also could go up in traffic and make the tough catches. And those types of guys are sort of rare. You usually have one or the other. I like taller guys that can run fast, and I like smaller guys that can go up and get it, because those are complete receivers and are good. They're good friends to your quarterback. And if you remember Shi, he made a lot of tough catches here. I don't know that Rowe, based on the feedback I've gotten and the film I've watched, may not be a little bit more freaky catching the ball. So that's a guy that committed early. Georgia came after him. Some other schools came after him, stayed firmly committed, despite a lot of schools trying to flip him. And he's come in, and he's the one guy that those brief practices, and keep in mind they're brief practices for a bowl game they're not going to play in, right? But he's the one guy that has had some wow moments in practice. So look out for him as well. And then Lenoris's brother, Sellers, in the playoffs, I mean, he was crazy good. Just a really good high school football player. And, there's a lot of talk around the state. He may be better than all of them. Who knows? So you have guys that all had really good senior years of high school. Donovan Murph was outstanding. And I'm think he'll make some plays in this All-Star game coming up if he gets the chance. And you know how that goes with the quarterback and all that. So I think when you look at this group, and if you're concerned about Lenora Sellers having people to throw to next year, I wouldn't be. I still do expect South Carolina to get a transfer portal receiver or two, just because you don't ever want to rely on freshmen and you want depth and all that. But if you think about this, if they get Murph, gosh, you're bringing in an influx of talent from the high school level. You have to think one or two of those guys will be in the rotation. And then look at who's coming back. I mean, South Carolina's had some guys leave, certainly. DeBron Gatling left. Elijah Caldwell got in the portal. Some of the guys that didn't play a whole lot this year. They do lose Delvon Campbell. They lose Gage Larvinan. But you got four. Mazio Bennett, of course, led the team. Led the receivers in receptions this season. Freshman from South Carolina, from Greenville. I guess kind of hit a wall, got hurt, got banged up against A&M. Kind of a bad play. But he's good, and I expect him to make some plays today if he gets the opportunity. You do have Jared Brown back for another year. Brown was another guy in and out of the lineup with injuries when he was in. Certainly explosive, and I thought played better football down the stretch. Vidrivius Jacobs is kind of the opposite. I thought he played better football at the beginning of the year. Had a little period there, Alabama game, Oklahoma game, where he was kind of the slant guy. He'd catch a bunch of slants and was pretty good at it. Florida State transfer. He's still very young. I mean, this was his redshirt freshman year. Just needs to continue to work and develop route running, hands, things like that. And then, of course, the guy everybody talks about, Nick Harbor, the 6'5", 235-pound freak. People around the program, all Gamecocks, should probably be pretty proud of Nick. He's worked exceptionally hard to get to the point where he's consistent. Now, is he consistently dominant, consistently great? No, the video game is a liar. He's not there yet. He's an athlete. Athletically, he's there. But I thought coming into this year, catching 30 passes would be good for him. Kind of a slow start. And quite frankly, the passing game was kind of cattywampus. And there were some drops in there early, but he's become way more consistent, can get open. I thought he had a good game against Clemson. He's averaged about 3 catches a game. It warmed everybody's heart to see him down the sidelines on the wide open touchdown against Missouri. And then also on the fade that set up the next touchdown in the game. We'll see if they could take advantage of that here. They're starting to trust him to get by defensive backs and catch the ball more on big plays. I want to see him catch one and then leave everybody in the dust. That's the next step for him, is to get fast down the field. Paul, you see green, go. And I think he's getting there. So what's can he get to 40 catches next year? Maybe. Can he become an outside threat? Do more things like he did against Alabama late when he caught that beautiful touchdown pass? I mean, it's there, and his work ethic is such that it could probably happen. So those are 4 guys that are back. You got 5 coming. If you get Murph, that's 10. You usually carry about 12, 13. So there is room for some older guys. I think a big outside guy to compete for that outside spot with Nick Harbor would be in order. Doesn't have to be somebody at 6'6". Donovan Green from Wake Forest is a guy that, he's 6'2.5", that can play that outside position when he's healthy. And then maybe another guy. If they get a slot guy that's like no brainer, they'll probably go on him. They're not going to overpay. There's stupid money being spent out there on receivers that are just good, really good players. Are they great? Are they elite? Are they Jeremiah Smith? Are they Ryan Williams? No. How about no? And so I don't think Carolina should do that, and I'm glad they're not, because that's the quickest way to poison your culture, is to overpay for players. And sitting around at practice, you're like, this guy's getting this, because it's going to be public knowledge when revenue share happens at state-supported schools. I don't know how you're going to get around that because of public record laws. I mean, you don't want everybody out there that, a guy like if one of these freshmen's better than this guy, and Sometimes coaches are slow to put the freshmen in for coaching reasons, but you don't want that in his mind that they're just playing him because they're paying him. I mean, that's the type of professionalization of college football you want to avoid. And I don't think that happens. I mean, coaches play who are going to help them win, but you don't want that out there. I mean, if you're at a place like Texas A&M or where a lot of guys are getting, whatever, and you want to do that, that's fine. It's there's some programs that can win by being mercenaries. I don't think you do that in South Carolina because the formula is different here. The formula here is in-state talent that you have kind of a corner market on, that you develop. It's hitting pockets of geography where you're maybe the closest SEC school and you can compete for 5 stars like Dylan Stewart, like in DC and Maryland. It's recruiting the right guys out of Georgia, and it's hitting the portal for the right guys. And the right guys aren't the guys whose agents are out there demanding $1 million. It's nothing against them. I'm happy. It's America. Go make it. But part of the reason South Carolina started 3-3 and finished 9-3, maybe 10-3 after today, is because of what was in that locker room. You're in a mercenary situation. 3-3, you have guys 1-3 in the SEC. You have guys, I've only played in 4 games, I'm out, or this, that, and the other. And you can't avoid that completely, like Bengali Kamara, but you do need to avoid it. And so I think that's why, fair market value. If they got a guy they really want who's special, who they believe is special, sure, they'll do what it takes. But with guys that aren't guaranteed special, how about no? And I get it. Everybody loves recruiting and they love the portal, and it's portal. And everybody's kind of like fantasy football draft. Oh, I want this guy, I want that guy, I want that guy. Oh God, why can't we get this guy? And they're just dreaming of championships and stuff. But in this sport, championships aren't built that way. Alabama's had the #1 recruiting class for a long, long time. They were 9-3. Georgia lost 2 games. They've been recruiting pretty well. And if you look at their portal numbers and their outbound numbers, and they've got, Alabama, I think it'll be a culture adjustment from Saban to DeBoer. Georgia's got great culture. Georgia's players play hard. Georgia went through the gauntlet this year. Georgia could win the national championship. I know they're 10-2. I know their quarterback's hurt, but they're a tough, good football team. Kirby Smart does a great job with that culture there, but they lost 2 games. Ohio State is kind of the flip side of that. They spent $20 million. Could they buy a national championship? Sure. But they better be up for all 4 playoff games because we've seen it when they're down. And that's the thing too. That group, they wanted no part of Michigan hitting them in the mouth for 60 minutes. Why? They're in the playoffs already. Would you, that's why they lost, Michigan again punched them in the face and they did not respond. That doesn't mean they're not really good when they turn it on. And if you can turn it on when you got to, fine. And they did against Tennessee. And if they did, I expect them to do it against Oregon and avenge that loss. And we'll see what happens after that. They're kind of my pick to win the national championship. So I'm not saying spending a bunch of money and getting a bunch of dudes, isn't valuable. I also think at Ohio State, they've been recruiting so well through the years. And I also believe this with all my heart. Their core of their program is a bunch of dudes from Ohio, and they do go national and get guys and have a ton of talent, South Florida, California, wherever. But that core is still there. And so, maybe the core didn't show up for the Michigan game. You think they would. Nick Saban said they had a psychotic obsession with Michigan. And they do. That's a bigger, people don't understand the hate. We don't have very many pure hatred, border rival. We got border rivalries in the South, but most of your really bad ones are in-state. Mississippi State, Clemson, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn. Georgia and Florida have a rivalry, but maybe Florida State's a little more hated. Miami by the Gators. Texas A&M. Although Texas Oklahoma's a rivalry, but the Michigan Ohio State's bad. I mean, it's rough. And look, those are culture wins. Georgia beat Georgia Tech playing Georgia off its feet, and Georgia beating them and overcoming. That's a culture win. When you're talking about rivalries. And we all still want to win rivalry games, don't we? Yes. And I'm not saying they can't, but I'm just kind of explaining that nowadays, you have to have culture or bad things happen no matter how talented you are. And it's happened to Ohio State twice. I mean, they're lucky. They were a Marcus Satterfield epic play calling series inside the 5 against Nebraska from losing to that Nebraska team in Columbus and out of the playoff. So, anyway, so for those of you that ask why Beamer's not out there spending tons of money assembling an all-star team, that's why. I mean, you got a way to win that served you well. How many top 10 wins does he have? How many ranked wins does he have? How many wins does he have the first 50 games? Best start in program history now. I don't think you deviate from that. I think they've kind of found the sweet spot. If I have any concern at all about the portal class, it's I don't see enough dudes from like small schools. Yeah, I'm like, well, wait a minute, where are these guys? And then they have some, especially up front of the offensive line with Newsome and guys like that. I hated they lost the guy from Vanderbilt. But anyway, I've gotten off track here. Back to receiver, back to Donovan Murph, announcing January 2nd. I think that's a guy, if I had to circle 3 right now to play next year, if they get Murph, it would probably be Murph, Clark, and Rowe. But I'm not ruling any of them out. I mean, I'm just not. I think that it's open. And then, like I mentioned, you got Brown, you got Jacobs. Luke Doty's back next year. I think Peyton Mangram's back next year, too, kind of on down the list. So you got good depth there. I mean, Lenore Seller's going to have plenty of weapons. And then the tight end room, I think, with getting Mike Tyler in and then getting Jordan Dingle from Kentucky, you have Michael Smith coming back. He's a freak. And I think he can have a breakout year. Brady Hunt will be healthy. He's not going to play in the Citrus Bowl, but he'll be healthy. He did some really good things down the stretch. Certainly a capable tight end. And then, like I said, Mike Tyler's coming in, and you probably won't have to use him a whole lot. Maurice Brown, the former walk-on's also a really good player, really good blocker, good special teams guy. So Lenore Seller's going to have weapons next season regardless. It's just, do they get Murph? Do they add one from the portal? Whatever. But, looking down the road, should Sellers have a good year, a great year in 2025, which everybody hopes he does, it goes pro. Keep in mind, Anthony Richardson was drafted 4th overall as a redshirt sophomore. Lots of guys have gone that are elite talents. Aaron Nolan, Cutter Woods, I got a lot of players to throw to if these guys develop. I mean, there's a lot of raw talent there. And you hope that they do. I mean, you hope that it's not the 07 class. I will say that 07 class is a little bit different. Spurrier's offense, as far as learning the reads and stuff for a receiver, was a lot different. So who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But I think they're in good shape. I think Mike Fury's done a really good job. And we will see what happens with Donovan Murph, Under Armour All-America Game again, 4 p.m., January 2nd, ESPN. I don't have the schedule of announcements. I don't know when he's going to announce. But if the Gamecocks do get him, that is a guy to circle as a potential player that will be out. And he's not getting in until May, so he's just got the summer. But like I said, he's physically advanced enough to do it. That is a guy you can see on the field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium Labor Day weekend against Virginia Tech, catching balls and making plays. He's got really, really good talent and upside and a high floor, which, like Gitteron's got a high ceiling too, just as high as Murph's, but a lower floor. He's got to develop a little more. It's good that he's in. Some of those other guys have weight to gain, things like that, because it's physical in the SEC. But floor guy, Murph and Clark, to me, are the two that you circle. And then if Rowe's just a freak, hell, play him, We'll see what happens, but I do think the receiving corps is heading in the right direction. We'll see what happens with Donovan Murph, folks. Wanted to go ahead and get this out so it could marinate a little bit before the game, which will be day after tomorrow, January 2nd, 2024. Donovan Murph, four-star receiver, Irmo, South Carolina. Crystal ball still on the Gamecocks, and we will see what happens then. Okay, folks, hope you enjoy today's Citrus Bowl. I hope the Gamecocks get a win for you. I got to jump off because I'm about to go do Inside the Gamecocks, the tailgate show for the final time in 2024, and this will be the final video in 2024 you get from yours truly. Thanks for making this a really great break. I enjoy doing these, and I'm probably going to continue to do them. So just we got some ideas. Bradford and I have been, and Phil and Mike, we've been in the lab. So look out for that. Happy New Year, everyone. It's always a pleasure and an honor to deal with this great fan base and also other fans of college football that happen to pop in and care enough about what I say to listen and look at my beautiful face for radio. By the way, if you're wondering, I do plan to shave soon. I thought it would be bad luck for the game today if I shaved between the winning streak and now. So we'll see what happens. All right, JC Shurburtt signing off here at thebigspur.com, Chief Sports South Carolina, Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Again, Happy New Year, everyone.